enable.
Express Logistics and Supply Chain Conclave 12th edition in association with Safe Express. The 12th edition of Express Logistics and Supply Chain Conclave was a platform for Asia's largest gathering of supply chain experts from across industries to network under one roof. The 2018 edition of Express Logistics and Supply Chain Conclave surpassed all previous editions in terms of numbers, with a record audience of 825 plus supply chain professionals from across industries.
We all know that supply chain is just like nature. It's in fact all around us. Now, to many of us, innovation might be about creating new things, but many a times innovation is also about saying no to many things. That is in order to maintain the efficiency, because at the end of it, when we talk about efficiency, it is about keeping it very simple, smart yet secure. Now that indeed is the theme for this year's conclave. Before we get started, I'm going to invite the following dignitaries to please step forward to also light the lamp. So may I please invite Mr. Martin Dubey, Mr. Harish Bhatia, Mr. Kaustav Chatterjee, and Mr. Trent Ile. Please step forward for the lighting of the lamp.
The two-day conclave opened with the keynote on the theme, AIM 10X, AI-powered next-gen supply chain.
So today let's talk about AIM 10X. What does AIM 10X really mean? It means a quantum leap from where we are to the next generation. And if you look through the history, progress has not always been linear. It occurs in fits and starts, and then there are these breakthrough events in technology or in industrial revolutions, where things progress suddenly by a leap, and there's a quantum leap. In more recent memory where we were, I think we have lived through this. In the 1990s, we had the internet and mobile revolution. Imagine that we are in 1990. And somebody comes and makes a very simple statement saying that two computers can now talk to each other, right? That, in a sense, is really the internet revolution. It's a very simple and innocuous statement to make, that two computers can now talk to each other. I'll make another statement, which is equally simple but equally far-reaching, which is computers can now learn from examples. That is a concept of immersive learning, and that's where it's called AI, artificial intelligence, which in some sense mimics human intelligence. But to program a computer to understand a new language is an extremely difficult task. I think I'll therefore summarize the essence of AI by saying computers can now learn from examples.
What I'd like to achieve today, and I'll do this briefly, is just to try and give an idea of where we've come from, where we are today, and what the future might look like. I was obviously in the Australian market and standing on what I thought were giant shoulders, looking at what was happening in that market in the 90s and the evolution that took place over that time when we had a market that was small, fractured, that got bought up by large industrial REITs, and they started to scale the business just at the same time that really the small, fractured supply chain companies, freight forwarding companies were starting to be bought up by bigger global companies. And that obviously had an impact on the size of real estate that we're dealing with at that time. We went from small 30,000 square feet buildings, up to sort of 50,000 square feet buildings, and they continued to grow up to 100,000 square feet buildings over that time frame. I then moved to China and tried to take the experience of what happened there. And at that particular time, there was companies like the groups called Prologis, and they were a big US group who were starting to move into China. They were all sort of taking their first steps in about 2003, 2004. And so I'd moved over, and that was really part of what helped, the evolution of the business that I now run, Logos.
There's a lot of new technology that's actually are coming in, and that will impact the logistics and the retail and the manufacturing, things like artificial intelligence, the machine learning, IoT, which is Internet of Things. You've got the big data, the 3D printing also, and some of the key things around that's actually wait is to expedite the market in order to disrupt and to compete for these retailers or manufacturers or logistics.
So I think the future of global supply chains, what we have seen, it's becoming faster, it's becoming more complex. When I say more complex, now with all the global sourcing, it's becoming longer as a supply chain. It has to become faster, so the just-in-time methodology of replenishment, we see that it's working. We see the data analytics that they're growing, that we actually need to meet the demand of the customer, and we're offering a number of choices to them. But most of all, everything has to be under a sustainable form. So consumers are becoming more demanding in terms of quality, in terms of time, but also in terms of sustainability of the product coming on their hands.
3PLs are actually emerging in these days quite well. They're able to actually provide you a very efficient, very technology-enabled supply chain, and are able to actually give you a kind of scalability which is required, and also at the same time sustainability also. They can actually invest for you, and they can ensure that maximum efficiency actually drawn out of that, because it is the job of supply chain company, that's a third-party supply chain company, to ensure and derive efficiency out of that.
One of the biggest emerging trends right now is in terms of infrastructure development. More and more supply chain logistics companies are realizing the importance of developing an infrastructure which is truly pan-India. And GST has also paved the way for organizations to outsource their supply chain in a bigger way.
Conceived and managed by Kamikaze B2B Media. Express Logistics and Supply Chain Conclave 12th edition in association with Safe Express. The first panel discussion of the 12th Express Logistics and Supply Chain Conclave was on the theme, Creating a Customer-Centric Network Architecture Strategy.
To me, network is the soul of the entire organization. You can have best of the manufacturing facilities, best of the marketing facilities, but if there is no network to support it on a sustainable basis, I think all the efforts will go in vain. So looking at the importance of this subject, I think a collective experience of almost 250 years, 11 professionals, and almost all of them are having 20, 25 or even 30 years of experience. So I would like each of them to share with you that what they have learnt in their organizations and what are their views on the network strategy.
Castrol in India is more than a 100-year-old brand. Now when I look into Castrol, till the time the deregulation of 1991, we were limited in terms of what you can import as the feedstock and produce as a base, produce as the lubricants which we use in our cars. And thereafter, and at that time also, Castrol, and even now today, Castrol was never allowed to be sold in the fuel forecourts or the petrol pumps as we call it, because we were competing with the public sector undertakings and the NOCs, so Castrol was not there. And that led to that Castrol innovating and setting up what we call the bazaar trade, which is like a retail trade for the lubricants. And I wanted to give this history because that shows is that how important supply chain can be in terms of a growth of a brand and sustenance of a brand.
All of you know that Shop Stop started in 1991. When we made the strategy, we had 3 objectives in mind. Okay, the first objective was the customer objective, second was our partner objective, our suppliers objective, and third was the organization objectives. When we talk about the customer objective, we were very clear that customer has to be delighted. To achieve that, even the display of the new arrivals we do early mornings. When the customer comes, you will not find any stocks are moved from one place to other place. All the deliveries from the distribution center is completed before 9 o'clock. The display is done before 11 o'clock. So we are ready to receive the customers. So from the customer perspective, it was very clear that every time the customer comes, they should get delighted. They should have a wow effect. So we have to keep on reinvent the wheel again and again.
We're technically the last people who actually interface physically with the customers that any business would be having. And that is where I guess we've been trying to innovate a lot. I remember around 2 years back, we had this whole discussion internally as to who essentially is our customer. I guess what we've come down to is that the customers of our clients are our customers. And the reason why I say that is that no matter what happens, if the end customer is giving you a complaint, one way or the other, we would be listening to a lot of escalations, etc., coming in from all the networks that we currently work in. So keeping that as a centerfold is what was primary thing in defining how we would like to expand our product development, etc., into the network.
I think as supply chain professionals, what comes to my mind, and I guess everyone's mind, is probably 3 C's. One is cost, the second is complexity, and I think we have been talking about customer centricity and what is required to be done from a supply chain point of view for the customer, but customer is the 3rd C. And I'm not sure whether it is now we are talking about customer as something which we need to design our network and other things to support the requirement, but I think this has been there for quite some time.
Like all of them said, I'm from the other side of the table, and everyone here is my customer, all of them on the left and on the right. But one thing you may have noticed, what all of them have now trended to do in these organizations, they themselves have become mini logistics company. We are only doing the last mile for them. They're already into such an integrated SCM management that they're doing themselves. So my question here is, are these companies looking at the future for long-term capex investment into this network services? I think so, because India's logistics cost is the highest in the world. We are at 20%, where the world is between 8 and 11%. So what we need to do is we need to get our infrastructure in proper order, which I'm sure it is happening big time with the new shipping minister. And we are going digital with the GST, the e-way bill, and those costs are having a tremendous effect on all these companies which are on my left and right.
So that is all from all the panelists. Thanks a lot.
I think AI is going to be even bigger than the internet revolution that happened 20 years back, when computers first started talking to each other. They could communicate to each other, and that opened up this entire thing called internet.
This business is extremely data rich, and hence the ability to use data in an intelligent way. And I'm talking about simple data science and data analytics, right up to complicated machine learning and artificial intelligence. This business lends itself to that.
We, along with a lot of our team members, focus a lot on load optimization to ensure that the entire container load is optimized, including route optimization to last mile delivery. That is what Elixia does.
The next session was titled Who Moved My Cheese and focused on what supply chains can do to prepare for the impending digitization wave.
We are sitting and riding on a wave of digitization. And I, in my opinion, feel that anybody who has not been a sniff or a scurry has already lost out. Because it's not suddenly that somebody has moved the cheese away. Over a period of time, we all have been watching. There have been small changes which have been happening for the last 10 years. The professionals who have actually been able to see these changes and adopt and adapt to it have been successful. The others who have not done it and not even tried to catch up have lost out. And those who have not done anything at all are probably this stage losers. Do you have any experience wherein you tried to implement a ERP solution or a digitization solution and you found that the acceptance was not global? Could you give some inputs on that?
We are substituting the word people capability with intelligent capability. And I think that's where we are trying to bring in artificial intelligence and machine algorithms. The second thing we are substituting is collaborative with interconnected. And when I mean by collaborative, it's very manual, personal, leadership-driven behavior. Whereas interconnected is, you are connected, I'm connected to my office today. You are connected to an e-commerce platform without somebody telling you, you are anyway connected through a mobile app. So we are trying to replace collaboration with connectivity. So that's how we are rechristening our supply chain strategies.
Now we are in a new market where it's changing every day, and so is the manner in which we handle the supply chain. So are there some key considerations that we should take on so that we change the way we think, the way we act in the manner in which we run a supply chain today? Ajit, you'd like to take that?
An ERP, for example, it's probably outdated in the context that when you had a single entity which was not part of a much larger network, which was what is providing value to the customer today, right? When there was a standalone entity which sold to some other standalone entity, the ERP as it exists today is not a bad thing to work with. It is very efficient. In the start of my career, it used to be like, that's what helped us deliver most of the value we were delivering. Now today, that model has gone, has changed.
I think one very critical aspect about it is the human being. The reskilling of the human being who is going to be part of the digital supply chain in the coming future is something which is going to be very different. How we collect data, how we model data, how we validate data, these are the skills that are going to be necessary for the new digitized supply chain to be successful in the new digitized supply chain. We'll have less people, we'll have much greater outputs.
The important point is all about the end-to-end tracking. Okay, so it's all about, I'm sure everybody was experienced with the Swiggy kind of model. The moment I order, I can track that when my food is going to be prepared and when it's going to be in transit and when it's going to be delivered my place. Similar, the way I look at it in the FMCG and in our industry, every customer, they're asking for, tell me when I'm going to get my product. I need not to call you. I have given my product orders, to ensure that I get a real-time information of my product gets delivered at my place.
Conceived and managed by Kamikaze B2B Media. Express Logistics and Supply Chain Conclave 12th edition in association with Safe Express. The Conclave also featured a number of exhibitors showcasing their products and services. Notable brands include Safe Express, CHEP, O9 Solutions, Spot On, Elixir Tech and FSC. The Conclave was the perfect platform for industry professionals to meet, interact, network and discuss major issues that are challenging the sector currently.
In the past we've had buildings perhaps dictating the automation in the buildings, whereas today we've actually got the automation dictating what's happening structurally in the building. So that's a shift that we're seeing across the world, and a shift that we also see will eventually come here into India.
I would rate India's supply chain today to be at par, if not better than most of the world. This is for the specific sectors like for what we work in. But general logistics, maybe yes, but you cannot generalize based on what you see out there.
Global e-commerce company decides that they are going to use forklifts fitted with clamps for the white goods. Now they are operating through a 3PL company. The 3PL company basically might not be really ready for that, but given the diktat from the customer, they start using it. And when they see the results of that, then their other customers who are operating from the same warehouse would want to have a solution like that. So the trends are coming from the Western world to India, but at the same time what is happening is the adaptability is becoming much easier.
The two-day conclave had 8 different tracks which were running parallel to each other. One of the main panel discussions from the conclave focused on the theme Sustainability and Innovation Strategies that could underpin the supply chain of the future.
I think, Mr. Chatterjee, you will be the best in position, because ITC is one of the company who has really leading the sustainability for years. So, Mr. Chatterjee.
Today, I'd like to share with you something which is of burning importance to the FMCG sector and indeed to all of us as citizens of this country and who are impacted by the environment. It's basically plastic waste management. So what did we do in ITC? About 7 years back, we realized that plastic waste management is going to become of sorts not only important, but we thought we could gold mine into it. So we started a project called WOW, Wealth Out of Waste, 7 years back in a city in South India called Coimbatore. And since then, we moved on to 7 cities in India. And we found some very innovative solutions how to take it forward. And I'll just quickly share it with you. One of them is, what do you do with the plastic? Hey, you make damn good roads to start with, right? And the roads which are made with this plastic mixture will last you 5 years more.
To approach a solution as big as sustainability from different points of view are what's going to be important. It is possible. You need to talk to people, go out, and I think some of these forums where I'm meeting a lot of these colleagues, this is where you get your ideas from, right? We frequently dismiss it thinking There's going to be a lot of talk. I'm not going to bring anything back, but I think this is one important piece that we are there. So like I said, a single size fits all solution is not going to be there. Find out the solution which is best suited for the type of industry that you have. Just do it in small pieces. You will reach the goal that you are planning for.
In Indian Oil, we have a very strong culture of innovation. Very strong culture of innovation. We really encourage and make our employees, not only officers, even the employees, the workmen, to get into the innovative purpose. And we have seen many benefits what we have gone in our infrastructure for this logistics movement by doing all those innovative things.
Conceived and managed by Kamikaze B2B Media. Express Logistics and Supply Chain Conclave 12th edition in association with Safe Express. One of the highlights of day one was the Procurement Strategy Summit. The theme for the discussion was seismic shifts in procurement. What will the function look like in 2025 and what's the foundation for the successful operating model of the future?
We talked about the AI, artificial intelligence, right? The natural intelligence is gone, isn't it? Yeah. So now people are talking about natural stupidity, but artificial intelligence, right? So let's see that how AI is impacting the data visualization and the procurement kind of thing. We have Vinay over here who would like to speak on this.
So India, it's still, if we talk about robotics, if we talk about artificial intelligence, 3D printing, if we talk about all of these things, we are still on the scale of 1 to 10, maybe somewhere around 2, 2.5, something like that. Now, why is this all coming about? Digital transformation, why is there a sudden need of all these things? First of all, what has changed? The change is the amount of data that is available to us, the amount of information that is available to us for analysis. Now, when you are able to analyze this data, when you are able to visualize this data and use this data, then it is helpful.
Some of the very good points are already touched upon in terms of artificial intelligence and robots doing stuff for you. All this stuff is within next 3 years is a reality, because all of us, all the technology vendors are working rapidly towards making it absolutely a B2C kind of an experience. Because without that, it is impossible for procurement to exist in a way. I'll tell you why. Because it is becoming a very strategic function. You are not going to get headcount approvals anymore because it is expensive, right? People are not coming at first is getting the right skill set is a challenge. And after getting that skill set also, retaining them is another challenge in India, with 30% attrition being heard in procurement very commonly. And the fourth is retaining the knowledge base that you are going to train them for. So I think that's where a lot of these tools are going to support you in retaining the knowledge within the systems.
Mr. Mangesh.
So apparently, this cyber security is going to play a very, very important role. We really don't know, or we cannot really 100% predict what are the threats which will come up. But at the same time, we need to ensure that a company need to have a very robust governance and compliance mechanism, ensure that all the IT standards are met, and then have a close watch, not only on your individual supply chain, but the supply chain of these aggregators. And that is something which is going to drive the future, and that is the way you can mitigate your risk.
Connect India will probably become the Uber of logistics, whereby our objective is to create 100,000 partners in 26,000 plus pin codes India has, and create a 1 by 1 kilometer distribution platform so that we are able to create the last mile connectivity seamlessly.
How do you bring in an element of Indian knowledge to the whole evolution of the supply chain? And that's where companies like us and TVS make a difference. What we do is, because of our global presence, we have a large amount of capability which are very unique in nature, but which are global standards. But we have a ground knowledge of Indian market. We know what works in the Indian market, and we have an understanding of how we could translate these global practices, if I can call them the global best practices, to adapt it to the Indian market and be able to deliver value to the customers.
Day 1 concluded with the panel discussion titled View from the CEO's Boardroom. The theme of the discussion was Changing Landscape, Opportunities and Challenges, which the new environment presents in the industry.
What we'll do is we've got the set of questions, and during the time I will open up for a few questions for the crowd to answer, and I'll basically managing the question as it goes. So let's start with our first questions for the panel. India is the fastest growing economy, but with inefficiency supply, what could have enabled this fast growth outpacing capabilities despite the inequities?
Supply chain is becoming bigger, is becoming longer. We see sourcing from another country just to be delivered to the customer in the end in India. And standardization, I think this is key. Creating standard basis in order for you to deliver on a complex supply chain, it's critical so that you keep your cost low.
From a data security point of view, I personally believe that as things get more and more automated and things get faster, if you look at what happened with Swiggy or Uber, and these are also logistics companies, and they are seeing the food patterns across India, what people are eating. So just for information, biryani is the national food of India. 70% of all orders on these systems are biryani. I also didn't know this, right? So who owns this data and how can you mine it? So it's a very, very good question, but something to spend time on as you're building these systems and technologies.
More and more institutional investments into the sector is going to change for India's infrastructure, warehousing infrastructure forever. I mean, so we're going to go beyond, we're talking about the loading unloading base to a much bigger scale where we talk about the breathing infrastructure, which is going to be like a more sustainable infrastructure, having a common infrastructure across the park level infrastructure we are talking about. Today, if you look at the historically, if any customer would want to expand their infrastructure, they would go outside and they start looking into the external areas. The current infrastructure, the park level, whatever we talk about is limited by the very, very small scale we are talking about.
Today, look at the choices which the customer has available. I mean, we probably used to have only one iPhone. Today we have multiple models. Not only the models, we have the colors also in that. There have been times when the automobile companies have been just manufacturing one car, one model of car, and they were manufacturing multiples of those, and the people were happy with that. But now the things are that, I mean, every company has multiple models. Even in that, the customizations are there. So I mean, the customer is really driving that so-called complexity because of the choices and the options which are available.
Distribution is not just first issue to stores or B2B. There's a big player of e-commerce directly to customers. You have click and collect and varying new business models coming up. There's further demand of, I would say, precision, speed, and accuracy that is now very critical to the supply chain. So these 4-5 factors, and there's many more, are putting significant importance to the supply chain and to the distribution logistics, which is where automation comes into the warehouse, right?
Conceived and managed by Kamikaze B2B Media. JDA Software presents 12th edition Express Logistics and Supply Chain Leadership Awards. The evening showcased the industry's most awaited awards night. The 12th edition of Express Logistics and Supply Chain Leadership Awards felicitated individuals and companies who have excelled over the last year.
I do believe this is an evening of recognition and rewards. Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to get started with the first set of awards for the evening. While I've requested Mr. Martin to remain on the stage, I'd also like to invite Mr. Vishal Dhawan, who's the Vice President for Growth Markets, China, Korea, Southeast Asia and India with JDA Software to please come on stage. And they shall be doing the honors for the first set of awards for this evening. Best Express Logistics Service Provider of the Year.
Winner is Spot On Logistics.
So on that note, let's move on to our next category. This is Green Supply Chain Company of the Year.
The award goes to Hindustan Petroleum Corporation.
not. Moving on to our next category, best-in-class supply chain innovation.
Honda Cars India Limited, Tapukaraplam.
Well, that brings us to our next category, which is best-in-class cross-functional teamwork project.
Guess what? Sterlite Technologies.
Best-in-class supply chain visibility.
Okay, there are two companies that win this award. First one is Schneider Electric, India, and Siemens Limited.
Our next category, ladies and gentlemen, Warehouse Innovation Initiative of the Year.
The award goes to Flipkart.
Moving on to our next category, this is Best-in-Class Supply Chain Solutions.
The award goes to CHEP India.
Moving on to our next category, this is Best-in-Class Loading Bay Equipment Company.
Gandhi Automations Private Limited.
Best 3PL Company of the Year, High Tech, Telecom and Electronics.
The award goes to ProConnect Supply Chain Solutions.
I'd also like to invite Mr. Guru Anant Narayanan, who's a senior client partner with JDA Software. A round of cheer for our presenters as well, ladies and gentlemen. And moving on to our next category for the evening, Industry Excellence in Supply Chain Retail.
All right, no guesses for this one. Shopper Stop.
And our next category, Industry Excellence in Supply Chain Oil and Gas.
And the award goes to Indian Oil Corporation.
Best-in-Class Supply Chain Procurement Diversity Initiative.
And the award goes to Nissan Motor India.
Congratulations to the team. And our next category for the evening, ladies and gentlemen, Best Shared Services Team of the Year.
The award goes to Raymond.
So thank you so much for doing the honors as well. We'd like to invite Mr. Umesh Gaur, Vice President Consulting Services with JDA Software, and Mr. Vinod Mathur, Senior Strategic Services Director, JDA Software, to please come on stage. Best Consulting Partner of the Year.
And the award goes to Deloitte Touche Tomatsu India LLP.
And of course, once again, I'd like to invite Mr. Martin Dubé to please come on the stage. Quickly, our next category is Best Warehouse Leasing Consultant of the Year.
And the award goes to Cyril.
Today, at the 3PL level, there are a lot of competition, and to have an edge over the competition is one of the key elements the customers looking forward, and what we would like to serve is on the digitization. How do we have an edge over the other competition is merely on the digitization.
Today, customers are used to Amazon, they're used to Uber, right? They're used to that experience where you can just log on and find all the data. And then, you're buying something which is so much more expensive and you don't have that experience. So when you extend this visibility to them, you increase the first touch point the customer has of your product. You're improving that.
Robotics and automation like automated guided vehicles or your unmanned equipment, conveyor systems for covering large warehouse spaces, You have automated sorters for high-speed sorting. You have a lot of the AI-driven predictive data analysis. All of these things are important, which will increase the efficiency of the warehouses. It will increase or improve the way the warehouses function as you move on ahead in the future.
Currently, what we are seeing is the Indian infrastructure and logistic and warehousing industry is at a very poor in terms of their dealings with infrastructure. But at the advent of GST regime and seeing the different opportunities that GST is given, we see a definite upbeat trend in the upcoming warehouse and logistics market.
Conceived and managed by Kamikaze B2B Media. JDA Software presents 12th edition Express Logistics and Supply Chain Leadership Award.
We'd like to invite Mr. Martin Dubey to please come on the stage. We have Mr. Harish Bhatia as well, the founder and CEO of Kamikaze B2B Media, and they shall be doing the honors. Our next category is Material Handling Company of the Year.
2 winners. The first one is Fonty Supply Chain Solutions.
For the second one, Schaeffer System International.
And our next category for the evening, Most Efficient Last Mile Operator.
Connect India E-Commerce Services Private Limited.
Moving on to our next category, this is Best 3PL Warehousing Company of the Year.
DVS Logistics Services.
Best 3PL Company of the Year.
2 winners. First one is Safe Express Private Limited. And the second winner is Future Supply Chain Solutions.
Best Freight Forwarder of the Year.
Hellman Worldwide Logistics India.
Best Startup Enterprising Solutions.
Shadowfax Technology.
Moving on to our next category, Most Disruptive Infra and Procurement Startup of the Year.
Build My Infra.
Best Container Handling Port Terminal of the Year.
Adani Ports and Says Limited.
Best Logistics Automation Service Provider of the Year.
Elysia Tech Solutions.
Let's move on to our next category, ELSC Outstanding Supply Chain Team of the Year.
2 winners. So the first one is Indus Towers Limited. And the second one is Siemens Limited.
ELSC CEO of the Year 2018.
And the award goes to Mr. P.V. Sheshadri, CEO of Future Supply Chains.
Supply Chain Company of the Year.
TCI Supply Chain Solutions.
Moving on to our very special category for the evening, this is the Lifetime Achievement Award.
The first one goes to L.R. Sridhar, co-founder and managing director, Connect India e-commerce. First time we have 2 lifetime winners. The second one is Mr. P.K. Das, Executive Director Supplies, Indian Oil Corporation. He's not with us today. On behalf of him, Team Indian Oil and Rajesh Nigam would collect the award.
We believe in having a team together, and we believe in a lot of collaborative working. Especially with our partners, we are a totally outsourced organization, and getting an award like this actually motivates the team.
This is the 11th time Indian Oil is winning the award consecutively, and it gives us immense pleasure for winning this award, which gives a very big recognition for Indian Oil to be in Oil and Supply Chain Excellence Award.
The Grand Conclave concluded with a few words from Mr. Harish Bhatia, founder and chief executive officer of Kamikaze B2B Media.
When we started with the team, we aimed for a figure of 750. Last 2 years, we've been officially logging in at 660, 670. But today, concluding the first day, I'm proud to announce this is the biggest edition of VLSC, crossing 850 numbers. Look forward to the industry support towards 2020, where we are aiming to touch 1,000 numbers.
Conceived and managed by Kamikaze B2B Media.
Focus, ideate, innovate, enable.